So Harry Osborn, who was once thought to be dead, murdered by Kraven, is now very much alive and still going as his new current Green Goblin. And his wife, Gwen Stacy, is also Mysterio, which even that in and of itself, we get a little bit more information on how crazy that is, but we also get more information about someone else who was seemingly brought back from the dead, Norman Osborn. As always though, this is AJ here at the Hero Informer. And as we begin, we see Harry Osborn reintroducing himself, as everyone thought, he was literally dead, back to Uncle Ben. Now, of course, it's not necessarily hard for him to sneak into his apartment because even as Harry goes on to say, he just has a regular door with a regular lock. Which means whoever wants to get in is getting in, which is super dangerous, especially for what Uncle Ben is trying to do, exposing the evil and all the wrongdoings inside the world, yet he has virtually no security and protection. Even so, we see Uncle Ben not only surprised, but going on to say that Peter is very upset, to put it nicely, about the death or supposed death of Harry Osborn and how the whole thing played out with Kraven and all the villains there. Of course, as you would, seeing your colleague or probably close friends at this point between Harry and Peter just straight up murdered in front of you. Though Harry didn't come here for a full update, he just wanted to make sure that not only Uncle Ben was safe, but Peter and his family, because in his own words, things are about to get serious. We see a little bit of that seriousness as we move over later that same day to Oscorp Industries, where we see Gwen Stacy, the functioning head of the company, now more so than ever with Harry and all intents and purposes being dead to the wider public. She has essentially inherited the entire Oscorp company, being the wife of Harry, all the assets and everything and legal headings went straight to her. Now she is having a meeting with Robbie Robertson. Yes, one of the head figures and persons from the Daily Bugle, which in and of itself isn't that too far-fetched and crazy, but it is once we get and it's revealed who he really is, because even as Gwen goes on to say, "Why should I trust you, Mr. Robertson?" He simply says, because we Mysterios have to stick together. Because Mysterio in this universe, as we have been previously explained and it's been exposed and revealed, it's not just one person, Quentin Beck. No, it's almost a whole team of people who can shift and transfer the mantle and powers, yes, actual almost magical powers as it may seem, of Mysterio to one another. It's almost like a secret little cult, a collective group of people still individual and distinct in whatever they have going on within their lives. And we don't exactly get to see what the files he gave to Gwen were because their meeting gets cut short as someone else, and someone arguably more important, comes rushing in. And it is none other than Kingpin and his assistant Wesley. Now, as Robbie is leaving the office, him and Wesley just have a little bit of eye contact, a silent conversation, which becomes way more interesting once we get the other revelation, and it's going to be a couple throughout this comic going forward, but it's going to make way more sense in a second. But as Wilson Fisk himself is here, we see that he isn't here to discuss business or a partnership with Oscorp, but essentially for intimidation. Because with Gwen now the head of Oscorp, Kingpin revealing that yes, he knew that Harry, even though he was legally the head of Oscorp, being the direct heir to Norman Osborn, he wasn't the real head of the company and running it from behind the scenes. It's mostly been Gwen, with him even going on to say, "I'll do you the courtesy of not pretending that your husband was the one who actually ran his father's company. Everyone knows it's always been you. But I'm also going to assume that you're privy to the agreements your husband and I had regarding our other business ventures." Essentially telling Gwen that yes, you might be the new legal head and in front of the company, but you're expected to fall in line just like everybody else. Kingpin even going on to further say, some people run the world and others simply live in it. And yes, after doing a little bit more ore farming, he just leaves, giving his little intimidation and making sure his demands were heard. He leaves his assistant here to do the rest of the paperwork, get everything signed over. Though, as we're going to see for the first time, Fisk isn't even the one in full control or knows what's going on. Because as he leaves, we see his assistant Wesley left. But Wesley here, he has a little bit of a dirty secret. He has a double life. He isn't just the right-hand man of Wilson Fisk, the kingpin and ruler of New York under the Maker, but he is also another member of this little Mysterio group, which is honestly kind of crazy if you think about it. This entire time, from Wilson Fisk, right-hand man, to higher-ups in the Daily Bugle, to Gwen Stacy, and now the head of Oscorp herself, it seems like this entire Mysterio group has his little dirty fingers in everything in every little part of the systems of New York going forward. Wesley even going on to confirm that yes, there's quite a bit of dancing around that someone in my position has to do. For example, I helped you find your husband so you could save him, and in return, I got a growing number of questions from Mr. Fisk regarding the disappearance of Kraven. Now, this is interesting that he says disappearance and not murder, because as we can assume, and what we saw, Kraven was murdered by Gwen. But because Wesley uses the word disappearance, it seems like maybe Kraven hasn't died and is just being hidden or captured. But it seems like Wesley's determination isn't 100% foolproof, as he even goes on to say, sometimes all of the drama and having to dance around, live this double life, almost makes him wants to stop the music altogether. but he would never do that because he has a commitment to their cause. Whatever cause and true understanding revealing the truth that this Mysterio group wants, it seems like everybody is on board, even if it means the uncomfortableness of their normal lives. Now with him handing over the very powerful magical amulet or necklace to Gwen. And it seems like even though this group of Mysterios is a group effort, only one person can truly be the Mysterio at a time. The Eye amulet, granting whoever's wearing it the powers and abilities that be of this magical Mysterio, which isn't just smoke and mirrors or illusions. It seems like it's real power, or almost magical in nature, which is a pretty cool departure, you know, taking Mysterio from just being a classic illusionist to the real blown full thing. Though after Wesley leaves, we see that Harry Osborn was here this entire time, just in the back room listening to everything going forward, now truly understanding the position his wife is now in. And now with her having the amulet for 1 week, you know, all the power of Mysterio and whatever abilities she can now do, and knowing Wilson Fisk knows nothing about what's truly going on, they're in a very good position to really do some harm to the evil corrupting the city and the world at large. Though Harry Osborn is in a less fortunate position because he is legally and publicly dead, so he can't just go walking down the street flaunting his identity. He has to be secretive in everything he is trying to accomplish, even more so than before, as we see him now have little setups and hideouts throughout New York. In particular, under a little bodega grocery store, we see him have a new high-tech secret lab setup for Dr. Octavius, who was previously fired by Gwen Stacy and now no longer working for the normal Oscorp corporation, and now just Harry Osborn specifically. Harry even going on to say that sure, this isn't as nice as your last lab, but beggars can't be choosers, right? And Octavius rightfully so calls out the irony of that statement coming from Harry in the position he is in now. Because not only is he a dead man, but his wife is going to legally inherit everything he owns. But that very real reality, in fact, hasn't even really crossed Harry's mind. So when Octavius asks Harry, what would your father think or say now in the position you were in? Harry has a bright idea, or probably dumb idea once you get to see a little bit later, but he says we should probably just ask him, as inside of the Otto Octavius specialized suits, specifically the new and improved Green Goblin armor, which was a repurposed Iron Man suit, there is very intelligent and advanced AI technology, one in this case being modeled after Norman Osborn himself. So after confirming that the armor is all good to go, all of the diagnostics are all in the green, Otto Octavius goes on to say that sure, he's doing good work here, but he needs more equipment, more stuff, and in the situation that Harry is in now, he doesn't have the almost unlimited resources that he did before, so his money and resource pit are more finite than ever. But it seems like for whatever Otto Octavius is doing, planning, and building, he needs a particle accelerator, a pocket-sized nuclear reactor. And I'm genuinely so curious to what the storyline and plan for Otto Octavius going forward could be. Could he potentially betray the Osborns and Gwen Stacy and in the side for good against Kingpin? Eventually, maybe he's going to switch sides, seeing that Kingpin not only has a greater resource pool and technology, but there's going to be no moral limitations working for the Kingpin versus working for Harry Osborn trying to do good. Either way, as he leaves, we see Harry now determined to get the suit on and talk to his father, or at least the artificial intelligence version of him, which is close enough, I guess, to really get some advice or some understanding about what the position he is in now and where he can move forward, as a lot of people would, you know, turning to their parents, especially if your father was a mentor figure in your life, like Norman was to Harry. This potentially could do Harry a lot of good and really set him straight. But, and there's a big but here, this is of course Norman Osborn we're talking about. He's never been one to sugarcoat things or put anything lightly, because as the artificial intelligence starts to scan his brain, look through some of the memories of what happened, you know, him being captured, beaten, and broken, Norman is just, let's say, not enthusiastic about his son being in the situation he is in now, even going on to say, do you even know who you are, Harry Osborn? Do you even know what you are? I am so tired of being ashamed of you. Son, do you even hear what I'm saying? I am wary of the shame that haunts me even after my death. Now, it's time to prove yourself once and for all, as we see Harry going on a little bit of a mission with his wife, both in their respective alter egos as the Green Goblin and Mysterio, respectively. Harry even using rockets now, so he's more closer to the classic Green Goblin looks and abilities. Because as they blow into and infiltrate a residential building, we see it's just a cover in front for Mr. Negative and his demons to work inside of, as he is essentially working a sweatshop, forcing the people and whatever other residents to participate forcefully inside of his weapon-making facility. And the weapons they are making is specifically bombs. So it's pretty imperative that they take this mission at least somewhat sensitively, or, you know, risk blowing up the entire building and all the civilians inside of. So as the battle begins, we see the demons attack. Yet even still, the couple here have different missions. Harry is more focused on getting the civilians out of there, while while Gwen as Mysterio takes care of Mr. Negative's forces and the weapons at large. Using her newfound abilities thanks to the amulet that we've seen passed on to her, we see that she is pretty proficient in using these abilities, confusing and outright dominating the battlefield here, infecting some of the men here with almost like a fear toxin-like substance, making them see things and warping their perception and inducing them into a state of almost downright horror, causing the men to swing and attack each other thinking they're seeing the enemy or warped versions of them. Though outside, Harry is able to get some of the civilians out of there and to safety. Yet, his father, Norman Osborn, the AI within his suit, is still watching and commenting on everything going on, with him even saying, "Really, this is the manner in which you choose to prove yourself, son? I suppose I shouldn't have expected anything else. After all, that is how you have decided to treat my company, your birthright, my own pride and joy, and you just pawned it off to your wife so she can go and play hero. Now look at you, dealing with the low-level stuff while she handles the bad guys." Norman, even in death and his AI version of himself, truly being disappointed and looking down upon his son, because even as Harry goes to argue that what he's doing matters, he is saving lives, Norman just continues saying that small people make small moves, Harry. And at your core, son, you will always be a failure, and that is disappointingly my greatest failure. Which sure, at this point, Harry Osborn is a grown man with his own problems, but even still hearing your father, whether it being real or not, say this to you, looking down upon you, that you're such a disappointment, his greatest failure, that would eventually do things to your mind and make you think certain things or just make you lash out and do things that you wouldn't normally do. Though now it seems Harry is able to keep it all together as he meets back up with his wife on a nearby rooftop, talking about all the events that went down, how they got all the civilians out and all of the demons were taken care of. The only thing that leaves are the bombs, the active ones that were in the building. Harry, of course, being under the assumption that they were just going to defuse the bombs, get rid of them, so they can't be used again. Though it seems like Gwen had different plans and ideas that she didn't even think to share with Harry, as just then the entire building explodes. And Harry here is angry because of that fact, because they were here to dispose of the bombs, take this quietly, take down, an outpost that Mr. Negative and his demons were doing. Going on to make the argument that the civilians or people in there could have gotten hurt, they could have gotten killed. That's sure, even though there was no more heat signatures inside of the building and everybody seems to have been extracted, this was still reckless and dangerous. Yet Gwen is under a different perspective on the matter, as she goes on to say and tell Harry that they're at war with a generational enemy, of course referring to the Maker and his whole group and team of villains he set to run things, so they have to do whatever is required to win. She doesn't even know why he's surprised about this. He was saying the exact same things a few months ago, in which in this situation, she's 100% correct. Even before when Harry was with Spider-Man, as he shot and almost killed the original Black Cat, Harry was making the same type of argument, how they need to do drastic measures if they're going to win against this overwhelming force in the opponents and enemies that they have now. Speaking of Spider-Man and Parker, we move all the way over to Utah, where we see him still trying to lay low, live a normal life, or relatively so far, while, the heat dies down and his family isn't in any danger. Yet even with that, he still has contact with Uncle Ben just to give a little updates on what's going on, if they're safe, whatever may have you. Yet this time here is different than all the other checkups that they have had previously, because Uncle Ben wants to introduce Peter to someone and to say hello. As he finally hears it, Harry's voice on the other line, someone that of course Peter firsthand saw being murdered thanks to the illusion of Mysterio and thought his friend, his partner, his only other superhero ally in this war was dead. And yet here he is back alive and in the flesh, as Harry Osborn tells Peter that it's time to come back home, come back to New York, and how he needs him for this war going forward. Making it truly seem like the heroes, because now they not only have Gwen over Oscorp, being the whole Mysterio thing with even Kingpin's right-hand man in on it. Harry is back alive as the Green Goblin in full function, and now there's not only one but two Spider-Men, or Spider-Man and Spider-Boy, or whatever his son goes on to call himself, swinging around and able to do good. Yeah, it seems like the heroes of New York are really putting together a fight force to take it to Kingpin and whoever else they need to take down. As always, so this was AJ here at the Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.